Recently, there has been a concerted effort on the part of liberals to repaint a very important vision our founding fathers had for the United States of America. A mere 3 words have been at the heart of a contentious argument regarding who is eligible to be our president: natural-born citizen. For some time now, liberals have attempted to remove that constitutional requirement altogether, seemingly without a care that to do so would actually require a constitutional amendment ratified by at least 38 states. To try to change the Constitution, they have made numerous end runs around it, even though it plainly details how those changes are to be made. Having failed in their attempts to slap the faces of our forefathers, and needing somehow to at least confuse the issues surrounding Barack Obama's constitutional ineligibility to be president, liberals resorted to a tactic that, over the years, they have honed and mastered: the dissemination of disinformation, or propaganda. The propaganda they have used can be a bit daunting for some, as these liberals misquote historic statements, case law, and even constitutional language that seems, at first glance, to suggest that their arguments are possibly valid. Thankfully, through the brilliant research of legal scholars like Mario Apuzzo and Leo D'Onofrio, it is clear that there is Supreme Court precedent that established as law that the historic definition of natural-born citizen has remained unchanged since the requirement was written in 1787, and that definition is one who is born in this country of citizen parents. Because the specifics of this research might take some time for those who aren't legal scholars to process, this is an attempt to present the essence of that research, so that all of us will be able to grasp it very easily. So for lack of a better name, we'll just call this natural-born citizen for dummies. Let's start at the beginning. In Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 of the Constitution, the framers set forth a requirement to be president. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. The apparent problem produced by this natural-born citizen term is that the Constitution itself doesn't define what that is. However, the Constitution isn't a dictionary, and most of the words in it are not also defined within it. Certainly, it cannot be understood that if the Constitution doesn't explicitly define a word or a phrase, then that word or phrase has no meaning. No, the term natural-born citizen is full of meaning, and within its historical context, that meaning is absolute and easily understood. But before we get to what the Supreme Court has ruled regarding what a natural-born citizen is, and to understand what the current law is as it applies to that term, it is necessary to understand an important legal doctrine: precedent. Black's Law Dictionary defines precedent as a rule of law established for the first time by a court for a particular type of case and thereafter referred to in deciding similar cases. And precedent that must be followed is known as binding precedent. In this country, a lower court must honor findings of law made by a higher court. On questions as to the meaning of federal law, including the U.S. Constitution, statutes, and regulations, the U.S. Supreme Court's precedents must be followed. That means that once the Supreme Court has ruled on something on which it has never before ruled, every other court in this country has no choice but to follow that ruling. No lower court can legally rule differently from a Supreme Court precedent. Now, in this particular debate that started during the 2008 presidential campaign, liberals who support Barack Obama have used rhetoric that has misinterpreted the historic definition of natural-born citizen, and have wrongly asserted that not only do the 14th Amendment and cases such as the United States versus Wong Kim Ark support their belief that a natural-born citizen is merely one who is born in this country, but also that those cases establish legal precedent. While it is true that the Supreme Court has established precedent regarding the definition of natural-born citizen, it wasn't done in Wong Kim Ark. No, sadly for them, what they contend simply is not historically accurate. In other words, they are lying. Here's what the record actually shows regarding what the Supreme Court precedent is for the definition of natural-born citizen. Yes, I said precedent. Remember, previously established law against which no lower court in the country can rule? First, we must look to the 14th Amendment, which was ratified on July 9, 1868. The Citizenship Clause of this amendment provided a broad definition of citizenship and overruled the Dred Scott decision of 1857. Fundamentally, the amendment guaranteed citizenship to slaves, something that was denied them previously. Nowhere within the 14th Amendment is any language construed as even dealing with the specific Article 2 natural-born citizen clause in the Constitution. The amendment merely defines what a citizen is. With the Wong Kim Ark case, Obama supporters attempt to inject an understanding into it that the justices never asserted or even implied. Actually, the Wong Kim Ark case merely stated that one who is born in this country is a native-born citizen, and they drew upon the 14th Amendment for that ruling. They purposely did not construe that person to be a natural-born citizen, as they relied on the 14th Amendment and not Article 2, Section 1. So Wong Kim Ark did not change the definition of natural-born citizen. The Supreme Court set the precedent for the definition of natural-born citizen in the 1875 case of Minor v. Happersett. Unlike the Wong Kim Ark case, which construed the 14th Amendment as the applicable law and did not construe Article 2, Section 1, Minor established that one who is born in this country to citizen parents is a natural-born citizen and therefore does not need to rely upon the 14th Amendment for citizenship. Yes, the Supreme Court stopped short of even considering the 14th Amendment in their decision, for they understood that the amendment didn't need to confer citizenship onto someone who already possessed it by virtue of being a natural-born citizen or born in this country to citizen parents. Since Wong Kim Ark construed only the 14th Amendment and not Article 2, Section 1, it did not supersede the ruling in Minor v. Happersett, which did not construe the 14th Amendment but only Article 2, Section 1. Wong Kim Ark was ruled to be a citizen by virtue of the fact he was born in this country, while Virginia Minor was ruled to be a natural-born citizen by virtue of the fact that she was born in this country to citizen parents. In so doing, the Supreme Court directly construed Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, and to this day, it is the only Supreme Court case to do so, which established the unaltered binding precedent in 1875. Any lower court in this country that would ever state otherwise would be in grave error according to the Supreme Court precedent. Not surprisingly, Barack Obama's supporters try to twist the clearly understandable decision in Minor v. Happersett by asserting an illogical argument. They falsely claim that the Supreme Court ruled that Mrs. Minor was a natural-born citizen because she was born in the country to citizen parents, but that the court didn't state that someone who was born in the country to parents who were not citizens were not also natural-born citizens. First, court rulings are based upon what is said, and not what is not said. In this case, the court also did not say that the moon isn't made of cheese. So are we to believe that in Minor v. Happersett, the court affirmed that the moon is made of cheese? Actually, as Mario Puzo points out, while all trees are plants, all plants are not trees. Or while all natural-born citizens are citizens, not all citizens are natural-born citizens. Also, if the justices believed that Mrs. Minor was a natural-born citizen simply because she was born in this country, they would have stopped there in what they wrote. But they didn't. Supreme Court justices are known to choose their words very carefully, and they stated precisely that she was a natural-born citizen because she was born in this country to citizen parents. That is the historic definition of natural-born citizen. The Supreme Court affirmed that definition in 1875, and they have never construed it differently. Therefore, it is the legally confirmed definition and a binding precedent on every court across this land. But why would Obama's supporters be deceptive and lie about this precedent? Is it because they just don't understand it? No. It is because Obama's father was never a citizen of the United States, and according to this binding precedent set by the Supreme Court in 1875, he is not a natural-born citizen as the Constitution requires, and therefore he is ineligible to be our president. Additionally, the Supreme Court isn't evading this issue because they think it might just be too difficult to determine what the law is concerning Obama's eligibility. No, they are evading it because they know what the law is, and they fear the consequences of ruling according to that law. Barack Obama and his camp have continued to fuel the circus surrounding his birth documents by releasing 2 known forgeries, precisely because they do not want the truth of this legal precedent to be at the forefront of public discourse. It's far easier to make his fake birth certificates the center of a national circus than it would be to approach this Supreme Court precedent, and our national leaders willingly continue to staff Obama's 3-ring national nightmare Never before in the history of America have our leaders been so afraid of the rule of law. But the rule of law is what has made this country. If we allow them to shirk their duties in this matter, then the rule of law will be rendered of no effect, and our country will soon go the way of every other country that succumbed to fear. For more information about this Supreme Court precedent, visit deanhaskins.wordpress.com and click on the blog roll links that point to Mario Apuzzo's and Leo D'Onofrio's websites, or just Google their names. We must not abandon this battle until it is properly addressed and resolved by our federal government, regardless of any possible consequences. For we, as a nation, stand only as long as our Constitution stands.